What is crackling, everybody? Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Numberfire. That is right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and Numberfire.com as we are getting you set for the Thanksgiving three-game DFS slate. We're going to break down each game, our thoughts on them, some value plays, and some players you can trust or not trust, and how we're viewing things for Thursday. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for Numberfire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for Numberfire. Brandon, we have a three-game slate on tap. It is, I think, pretty fun. Personally, there is a game that I like more than others will like, I think. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about this one. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. The Thanksgiving slate is the best part about Thanksgiving by far. I won't get into why. But
you can.
No, it's not even like, I don't think it's even a hot take now to say that Thanksgiving food's like overrated.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm the only one who thinks that, but I've never liked Thanksgiving, the meal, but I've always loved the football. And now we get three games, we get some DFS, so it could be way worse.
I think it depends on how you view the meal. Do you think the meal centers around turkey? Because if you do, like, turkey's just fine. Like, it's okay. I like turkey. It's cool. But if you think it centers around the green bean casserole, then that's a different discussion. Because green bean casserole is one of the most elite things one could possibly consume. And
Which is why people eat it all year long. It's so good that you can't get enough. And
it's very fatty. It's very fatty because it has like those onions. It has cream and mushroom soup. At least if it's made well, it has cream and mushroom soup. So like from a health perspective, I should not eat that year round. Like usually like go-to vegetable is just Brussels sprouts, like seasoned Brussels sprouts. Those aren't that bad because I'm not coating them in cream and mushroom soup. But like on Thanksgiving, it's different. If I ate green bean casserole all year round, I would not be able to move, I don't think. Like that would be terrible. So it's more about, for me at least, the health perspective than I don't like this food.
I don't know. I just eat some stuffing till everyone starts walking away, and then I can go watch football.
Stuffing's the worst part of it. I don't know. I don't understand. That's the worst part of this discussion. Like, I think your turkey take is fine, especially like people who are vegetarian and vegan. Totally okay. You can dislike turkey. I don't hate on that. But stuffing sucks.
Yeah, even before, like, I'm a vegetarian, but like I never liked turkey, and I don't know how anybody would.
Again, it's mediocre. That's fine. It's fine meat. Like if someone offered me brisket and is like, "Yo, I'm having brisket at my house on Thanksgiving," I'd be like, "See you guys. I'm heading over there. You can fend for yourselves." But like, it's tradition.
That's why pizza's the move.
Yeah, pizza would be good. That's fine.
Pizza on Thanksgiving is the
move. That's not a bad take. I think your take that stuffing is the best is terrible though. So we'll let you. You can have the stuffing. I will take the green bean casserole, and we'll both be happy. We can both be happy too because this Thanksgiving slate is pretty fun. We're gonna break that down in just 1 second, but this is a jam-packed week here on the Numberfire Podcast Network Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Because we had our Week 12 recap podcast go up on Monday. We have this one today, and then our Week 13 main slate preview, where I will get to talk a lot about Jared Goff, because who wouldn't want to do that right now? That'll be up tomorrow. We're recording that live on YouTube at 10 a.m. We have every podcast live on YouTube now. The recap podcasts are Monday at 9, and the preview podcasts normally are Thursday. This one will be Wednesday because of Thanksgiving. Make sure you subscribe on the FanDuel YouTube page or on the Numberfire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave a rating and review as well. Let's dive in now to Thanksgiving. Before we do that, before we go game by game, I want to go general short slate strategy, something we do every year on this podcast, breaking down how our process has changed, because processes should change when we have just 3 games compared to when we have 11 or 12. So, Brandon, how does your process change when there are a lot fewer plays at our disposal?
I think the biggest one is correlations and within the same lineup, which basically is what you always do with assumptions. You need correlated lineups. You can't on a 3-game slate, and especially with Bears Lions not looking too hot. You can really stack up one side of an offense and still have a good lineup. But in general, I want to shy away from stacking running backs with wide receivers or more likely tight ends because tight ends need to score touchdowns. Running backs generally need to score touchdowns too. So I'm looking to avoid stacking, running backs and tight ends because I'm trying to get the most exposure to like the overall touchdowns on the slate. But again, along with that is those assumptions and playing if we think that. I mean, spoiler alert, we like Bills Cowboys a lot.
Oh, you do too?
It's my favorite game on the slate.
Okay, cool. It's mine too. All right.
Yeah, but you don't want to have Ezekiel Elliott and Devin Singletary in the same lineup necessarily because that's not unless you're playing for the under. So I don't know. I'm rambling, but I mean, you just need to have your lineups make sense in terms of what is actually realistic for a game to do.
I would actually be okay with those two together. I think that if you play a lot of single game slates and you do well on them, you will do well on Thanksgiving because it is the assumption game where you want to assume the way the game plays out. It's hard to do that for an 11-game slate, but for 3 games, you can say, I think the Bears dominate. I think Cowboys-Bills is close, and I think the Saints win a lower scoring game. You can make those assumptions and still cover all your bases, and you should do that. And I think that if you're playing a single game slate, that's the same thing you do. Okay, I am filling out this lineup as if the Rams absolutely pace the Ravens absolutely pace the Rams. If you play it out like that, you're going to be on the right guys because if you know what the game script will be, you know that Mark Ingram is more likely to be involved than he would be if it were a heavy loss and things like that. And I think that that's kind of the advantage we have on a 3-game slate is you can make those assumptions and you should make those assumptions. And you will not fill out good lineups if you don't make those assumptions. So I think that what you were saying was use players who would both benefit from a certain script.
Yeah.
Like
to me, unless so for example, like Dawson Knox and Devin Singletary, or I guess Frank Gore could be a better example. Not saying Frank Gore is a great play, but I wouldn't want to have both of them in the same lineup because Frank Gore needs touchdowns to get his value. Dawson Knox also does. So it's things like that as well, keeping those things in mind.
Whereas players like Devin Singletary and John Brown have more yardage upside, meaning they don't necessarily need a touchdown to pay off. And I think keeping that in mind, because there are limited, touchdowns are a scarce resource. And if you're using multiple touchdown-dependent players on the same team, you better hope they go over. And maybe your assumption is that they do.
If that's your assumption, that's one thing. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And I will say, you use the phrase "cover your bases," which I'm taking out of context here, but you can't cover all your bases on the 3-game slate. You can't have a Lions route, a Bears route. You can't do all that. So you need to pick and choose, take some stands this week. Right.
You can't. Maybe you can, but I don't think you can assume that Bears Lions just totally shoots out. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
The problem is it's an easier game. It's a fairly easy game to stack because we generally know where the ball's going.
And it's not that expensive either.
Right.
And I think that matters. We'll dive into Bears Lions and then go in order with the other games too in just 1 second. But first, during Thanksgiving week, we're hooking up our podcast listeners with Number Fire Premium for just $5 in your first month. Whether you're betting on Thanksgiving, the NFL, if after Thanksgiving, setting your DFS lineups, or are just getting ready for the fantasy playoffs, Premium covers all the bases. Normally as much as $49.99. Try Premium today for just $5 when you sign up with the promo code TOUCHDOWN. That is promo code TOUCHDOWN. Visit numberfire.com/premium for more details. Again, numberfire.com/premium. The promo code is TOUCHDOWN. And the promo code applies only for first-time users through the end of Cyber Monday. Let's dive into Bears at Lions. The total here is 38.5, and the Bears are 2.5-point favorites. Both those numbers have shifted since the open. The Bears open as 1-point favorites. They've moved. The line has moved a 1.5 in their favor, and the total has gone down a 0.5 point. 62% of the money is on the under, according to OddsFire. Looking at relevant injuries in this game, Taylor Gabriel and Ben Braunecker both missed practice on Monday and are in concussion protocol. The next tight end on the Bears roster is J.P. Holtz, who had decent market share numbers at Pitt in college, but he ran a 4.85 40, so not the most athletic guy. Trey Flowers for the Lions in concussion protocol did not practice Monday. And then Jeff Driscoll was limited in practice due to a hamstring injury, though his status for Thursday is not really known. David Blau would start if Driscoll can't go. The Lions apparently tried to sign Josh Johnson, but the XFL blocked that signing, which would indicate maybe they are worried about Jeff Driscoll, but it also could just be that they're like, hey, Matt Stafford's probably not going to play the rest of the year, and we need a backup plan for that. So I would still assume that Jeff Driscoll starts. But Brandon, when you look at this game overall, what stands out to you?
This game has a lot of bust potential. It's the lowest total on the slate, but I still think that there are plenty of ways to stack it, and so it's still appealing. I mean, especially if Driscoll plays, we have two quarterbacks who can run the ball, and that has a lot of juice on a short slate. But if you look at, I mean, the target shares over the past three games, Allen Robinson has a 23% target share. Anthony Miller is at 20%. Tariq Cohen is at 17%. Taylor Gabriel's at 21%. I skipped over him. But I mean, the Bears' passing offense has been pretty concentrated.
Yeah.
Robinson's expensive at $7,700, but Anthony Miller is $5,300. Taylor Gabriel's $5,400. So, I mean, they're cheap and they're getting pretty good work. So I think that even though you don't have to love the Bears offense, we know where the ball's been going, and that helps a lot. And also David Montgomery is $5,900. So I don't love the Bears offense, but I would anticipate that they play from ahead.
Yeah.
So that leads to David Montgomery being a pretty core play for me.
And I think that what you said, going back to the pass catchers, is also true, where we know where the ball is going. And I think we'll have a better idea of where the ball is going if Taylor Gabriel can't play.
Yeah. Because
Anthony Miller's snap rate has been erratic, I think is the word that I would use for it. It's been up, it's been down. And his target, totals have been very similar. If you look at him, since Taylor Gabriel's snap rate went back up let's just look since Taylor Gabriel came back from his concussion. In that time, Anthony Miller has 16% of the team's targets, but he also does have games where he's had 9, 11, and 9. And if we remove Gabriel from that discussion, he's had 18% of the targets in that time. That's going to open up a lot more for Anthony Miller. I think that Allen Robinson is going to get his regardless, so maybe a minor upgrade for him. But Anthony Miller, $5,300 on the slate where personally, I want to find ways to get in Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara. They're $8,400 and $8,300. I need help, but I think that Anthony Miller is a pretty big crutch in getting there, at least to me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit considering prioritizing the receivers, the expensive receivers, and so that leads me back to David Montgomery. I can't fault you, and I will have lineups where I play a lot of I'll have Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara paired together, but I'm not of the opinion that I have to jam both of those guys in a ton of lineups. So that's another reason that I think Allen Robinson has a lot of appeal at the top.
Yeah, I think that Robinson is fine. I just don't want to go if I can get a high usage running back versus a wide receiver tied to Mitchell Trubisky, I'd rather do that. Even though I have concerns around Zeke Elliott's passing game usage, about Alvin Kamara, Terron Armstead being out. I think those concerns, I'm guessing that's why you're concerned. I think those concerns are legit, and I do not fault you for those. But I think that the usage gap between them in the field is still going to be big enough where I don't care.
So if I'm building one lineup and I'm just playing one lineup, I'm going to play Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara and hope to hit on the value wide receivers.
Yeah.
But I'm building more than one lineup.
Sure.
And I think that I have interest in pivoting away from that typical construction on the shorter slate in case Kamara doesn't erupt.
Yeah.
And Ezekiel Elliott doesn't get a lot of passing usage, and maybe I play the Bills get out ahead, which probably won't happen. But I mean, again, typically in years past, we're jamming in these expensive running backs, and then that kind of hamstrings us for the rest of the lineup. But I'm not of that opinion, so I'm really getting drawn to David Montgomery here.
Yeah, and I think that Montgomery, I think it's between him and I like Devin Singletary more than you do. I know that. So I think it's for me, it's between those two guys as my favorite value play. David Montgomery in his healthy-ish games since his role change, 74% of the snaps, 73%, 61%, 62%. In those 4 games, again, excluding the one game where he was banged up, he's averaging 17.8 carries and 3 targets per game. The way that I view things is adjusted opportunities per game, which is carries plus 2x targets. And that's 23.8. And that's not a bad number for Montgomery, especially for a guy who is $5,900 and favored against what is a bad rush defense in the Detroit Lions. Detroit ranks 23rd against the rush based on number fires metrics. So I think that if I'm building one lineup, Montgomery's probably in there. I think he's a very good option. I do want to discuss Bo Scarborough on the other side because we're going to have assumption lines where we assume Detroit gets ahead. And the past 2 weeks, Scarborough's played 50% of the snaps in both times. He's had 14 and 18 carries, and that's good. He has 17 total routes run and just 1 total target. So I don't want to use him outside of lineups where I assume the Lions win. And if it were a full slate, I would not consider him, but it's not a full slate, and there is a path through which the Detroit Lions win big. So Bo Scarborough is someone I'll use in that situation, but probably not going there outside of that. What about you on Scarborough?
Yeah, it's same thing as you. If I'm playing lineups where I think the Lions win, he has value. But with Devin Singletary at 6,600 and David Montgomery at 5,900, it's really hard to get heavy on both Scarborough outside of that. But I do think that J.D. McKissick at 5,400 or 5,200 has value on the other side of that if I'm playing a Bears onslaught, which is much more likely.
Yeah.
McKissick has a lot of pass game usage of late, and I don't love the play. But, I mean, you have to you're going to be playing some suboptimal, plays on this slate if you want to get exposure to all the studs.
Yeah, McKissick has 13% of the targets since Jeff Driscoll took over, which is a non-negligible number. I think that I might be inclined to go with a wide receiver in the flex rather than using McKissick if he's like my third running back. I think that's especially with Miller being $5,300. I think I'd be inclined to just abandon ship.
But play McKissick as one of your 2 running backs and still play 4 receivers?
Probably not, because he's so far on the list behind Zeke, Kamara, Singletary. He's beneath Cohen, honestly. I don't like Tariq Cohen. He's beneath Latavius. We might get Devontae Freeman here. So I think that he's too low on the list for me to go there personally. But I understand. I don't think he's like a bad play, just not someone I want to use. Jeff Driscoll, as a starter, is averaging 7.3 carries for 50.3 yards per game. You talked about this on the Monday recap podcast. That's more than an extra passing touchdown per game. Driscoll's 7,000, and I think that my 2 favorite quarterbacks in the slate are Dak and Josh Allen, but I don't think it's a terrible idea to consider either Driscoll or Trubisky if you want to jam in guys like Michael Thomas and the expensive guys in the top end. So I'm okay with them. They will very much be secondary options for me, but I think that because both Driscoll and Trubisky have a route to paying off via rushing, I can justify it. They're just not super high on my list. What about you with the quarterbacks here?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's a lot of rushing upside. I mean, hopefully Driscoll's healthy enough to run it, and hopefully Trubisky's rushing sticks around because that actually makes him a somewhat viable fantasy play, which he really hasn't been all year. So hopefully that sticks around. But yeah, for the price, I don't hate either quarterback. And again, Trubisky I guess both of these guys really, they've been targeting their go-to options. So that helps with stacking. That has a lot of value for me on this slate where, we're not guessing between 5 different pass catchers, which is, I feel like it's always been the case for Trubisky lately.
I think my favorite Lions player is Marvin Jones. He is $6,400 in the 3 games for Driscoll has started. Marvin has 23% of the targets. No one else is more than 19%. Marvin also has 44% of the downfield looks and 29% of the red zone looks. That's really good usage. And I'm not saying that if he were the same salary as Kenny Golladay, I would rank Marvin Jones higher, but he's $700 cheaper. So I would rank Marvin Jones higher than Kenny Golladay once you consider the salary. What about you? Who's your favorite here?
Yeah, it's going to be Jones. He's a core play for me. He has just more targets straight up from Driscoll. He has 10 of the deep targets. Galladay's next with 6. It's really been those two in terms of the downfield looks all year. But that matters a lot if you're looking for some splash plays. So I do have Jones as one of my favorite per dollar receivers on the slate.
Yeah, I think that I'd agree with that. I think that Kenny Golladay is still very much a good play because we know that he doesn't need a ton of volume to pay off because he does get downfield work and he is good at football. It hasn't been there with Driscoll so far, but that's not a huge detriment. The one reason that I think that I'm going to be a bit lower on this game, I know it's not a shocker to say I'm lower on this game.
I'm laughing at something else.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't even notice you were laughing. But I think it's important to remember that this game is a rematch of a divisional game that we just saw 3 weeks ago. These offenses know each other, and Jeff Driscoll did play in that game. And that's true for Saints Falcons too, which is a big part of why I like Bills Cowboys most. So I don't want to get too crazy in liking this game, but I think that Marvin Jones, Anthony Miller, and David Montgomery are all objectively good plays, even in the context of the slate. Anything else you want to add in there?
No. I think this game has paths to production, but with you, I don't want to go overboard on it. So I don't really have a lot of core plays. It's mostly Montgomery and Marvin Jones here.
All right. You have one game stack to go to in this game. Where do you go?
Oh, boy. Montgomery, assuming Driscoll's healthy, Montgomery, Driscoll, maybe Marv and Golladay.
Okay.
And play for a Bears onslaught, but then a lot of volume coming the other way.
I think that because I am so low on this game, again, I know that's not a weird take. My go-to game stack here is Montgomery Marvin. They're both cheap. They allow me to dive into the other games a lot, and I want to keep that in mind. So just realistically, yeah,
that was my number one. But then I figured I'd give up an actual sort of fuller game stack.
Yeah, I think if I were to do a full game stack, Driscoll would probably be my favorite because I'm more certain he'll run than Trubisky will. So Driscoll, Marvin, Montgomery. I might not go Golladay there just because I do want to, again, save a lot of slots in the other games, but I think Driscoll would be my preferred quarterback there. Let's move now to the Bills at the Cowboys. As we mentioned, we both like this game most of the slate. The spread opened at the Cowboys -7, but it has tightened to -6.5 according to OddsFire. That total has risen to 45.5 from 44.5. That is despite 64% of the bets being on the under. I think only 32% of the money is on the under, according to OddsFire. So basically, there's a lot of money on the over relative to the tickets, and I agree with that. There aren't a lot of relevant injuries here. Amari Cooper was able to practice in full Monday, so good to go there. What are your overall thoughts on this game, and what draws you towards it specifically?
3 things primarily. The touch shares are pretty tight. We know where the ball is going. They are not divisional opponents. Yeah, this is not a rematch, and they're both top 12 in adjusted pace based on my metrics. So,
and it's not a rematch from 2 weeks ago, which is the case for both the other ones.
Yeah. So this is my number one on the slate. I know that won't be super popular because we have Saints Falcons, but I would imagine that this is the second place that people look. But still, I think that there's some leverage here if we get, heavier on this game than on the nightcap.
And I think I will. It's partly because of what you said with the touches being concentrated. I like that. It's a non-divisional game. Like you said, I like that as well. And it's also it's not that expensive. I think relative to each guy's role, it's not that bad. Another thing too is I think people may be scared of this game because the Bills defense has kind of become this boogeyman a little bit where we think that they're very good, and they're good. They're a good defense. But once you adjust for the schedule they face, they're 13th against the pass based on number fires metrics, and they're 28th against the rush. The Cowboys 18th against the pass, 20th against the rush. Neither team has an elite defense that we need to fear. And the Cowboys offense, even after that, tough game against New England, they're the second best passing offense in football based on number fires metrics, second best offense overall. Like, they can beat this defense. And I think people, given the stink on the Cowboys and Jerry Jones being mad, given the fact that people do like the Bills defense, I think that the Cowboys offense will be popular, but I think they will be not nearly as popular as they should be. Give or buy or sell that take.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I think that, that was actually one of my concerns. It's like, well, maybe stacking the Cowboys against the Bills, that tough-ish defense, doesn't make sense. But then I, dug more into the numbers, and I mean, it's a beatable matchup, especially for an offense this good. And like we said, that we know where the touches are going in the backfield. The carries are going to go to Zeke Elliott, especially if Dallas is ahead. Elliott has a path to a huge game, but in the as far as the pass catchers go, in 4 games since Randall Cobb came back and started playing elevated snaps, Michael Gallup has a team high 23% target share. Amari Cooper's at 20%. He missed some snaps in those games, but still. And Randall Cobb's at 19%. Jason Witten's at 16%. The deep targets, 12 for Cooper, 11 for Cobb, 7 for Gallup. So I think that Cobb has some appeal. Mm-hmm. But despite the lack of deep targets relative to his teammates, he's still elevated. Gallup leads the team in overall air yards. So these 3 guys, their roles kind of close. I know Cooper's been banged up. I know he's had tougher matchups. So, but we're also not spending $7,900 for Michael Gallup or Randall Cobb. So considered, it's all, per dollar, it's pretty close for me between these 3.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to view it. Like, I don't have a definitive take of I need to have this guy first. I would rank Michael Gallup first at $6,800. Like, I would do that. But Randall Cobb is a very good play, too, at $6,000. Amari Cooper will face Tre'Davious White. And I think that's another situation where people are going to be scared off by the Bills defense. And Tre'Davious White's a good player. But I don't think it matters that much for Amari Cooper. If you look at his home road splits, like this, and home road splits are a tainted way to view things. But at home this year, 106 yards and a touchdown, 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, 226 yards and a touchdown, 106 yards, no touchdowns. Slacker, 147 yards and a touchdown. And he's faced some good cornerbacks in that time too. So he's not on the injury report. He played all but I think 7 or 8 snaps last week. At $7,900, I think that he's going to go under-owned. And of all the guys in the slate, Amari Cooper might have the best ability to totally alter the slate, of guys who can just totally turn the slate on its head. I think that Amari Cooper is a guy with the highest true ceiling. So I think even though his matchup is tough, even though he is not fully healthy, if I had one lineup, Amari Cooper might not be in it, but I want to actively make sure I have more Amari Cooper than the field does.
Yeah, Cooper's going to be interesting. It's not like I'm not saying that I'm going to prioritize Amari Cooper over Ezekiel Elliott, but with Singletary and with David Montgomery, I think that there's still, I'm still just drawn to sort of spending up at receiver a lot because we'll talk about 2 more guys with, huge potential in the next game. But yeah, Amari Cooper, I mean, he can erupt, and he can do it on not a ton of targets, which Michael Thomas, we generally need him to get a ton of targets to rack up. He does.
But he's also $1,300 more expensive than Amari Cooper.
And Cooper can get it done on 7 targets if that's what it takes. So I mean, I'm really drawn to Cooper. I still think that Randall Cobb and Michael Gallup are good plays for their price. Yeah. For me, Gallup's probably, I know you said he's your number 1. Yeah. And I could probably, I haven't toyed with lineups too much, but you could probably live right in that mid 6,000 range. But with John Brown and Marvin Jones there, I might have Gallup just kind of 3rd in that tier, but it's close. Sure. But I mean, I think for that reason, I might have a little bit less Gallup than you.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It is a good tier. John Brown, even Calvin Ridley at $6,500, he's awesome too. So that 6,000 range of wide receiver is really good. Also think it's worth mentioning that usually I think there have been 3 lineups this year where I've used a wide receiver in the flex. That number will go up on Thanksgiving. I think that there are a lot of good receivers. And if I don't want to gamble on the cheaper running backs, just go Zeke and Kamara, I can pepper that 6,000 range at wide receiver and feel really good about it. So I think it's more viable to use a wide receiver in the flex this week than it usually is, or for the Thanksgiving slate. So I'll be doing that for sure. So I think
that's never really viable outside of that.
Correct. As far as Zeke goes, the reason that I am inclined to use him, if we look since Randall Cobb came back in week 7, Zeke's averaging 20.4 carries and 3.4 targets per game. 3.4 targets is not a good number. But when you add it to his carry total, that's 27.2 adjusted opportunities per game. And if you look at each player's most relevant sample, that's second best in the slate behind Alvin Kamara. And it's a wide gap between them and Montgomery. So I want that floor that he brings. He's averaging 12.4 FanDuel points per game in that time when you exclude his touchdowns, which means that if he gets one touchdown, like that's 18.4 points, I'll take that at his salary. If he gets 2 touchdowns, which is within his range of outcomes, I think that Zeke is a very good play. And I know that that's not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Jim said that. But like, I just want to reiterate, because I've been lower on him than consensus, I think, this week for Thanksgiving, I will not be.
Yeah, and I said that I'm considering spending up on the receivers. That's if I'm building lineups where, like, again, it's not gonna be my main lineup build, but that would be. Devin Singletary is not super script dependent because of his usage. David Montgomery is, so I'm not completely sold that the Bears lead. So I mean, he has concerns even at $5,900. But if you really rely on this 6,000 range for a receiver, you can build some nice lineups. So I think I'll probably end up with more Zeke Elliott than I initially thought.
Yeah, I just think that's a big part of my roster construction this week is how good that 6,000 range is at wide receiver. And like, again, Anthony Miller is below that too. And I like him quite a bit. So I think that's all very beneficial. Let's talk about the quarterbacks here. Dak Prescott has had 30 plus FanDuel points twice this year. He has had 25 plus FanDuel points 5 times. He's had 20 plus FanDuel points in 8 games this year. I think that if I have one lineup, Dak Prescott will be my quarterback. What about you?
It's close. It's probably Dak. I think he's the best play on the slate. I don't think it's a slam dunk necessarily. I still have appeal with Matt Ryan and Josh Allen. They're a little bit cheaper, and a few $100s can go a long way this week. But I probably, if I'm really getting down to it, probably Dak if I'm building one lineup.
I think that Josh Allen is correct. You're right in having Josh Allen there, because my main issue with Josh Allen this entire year has been he hasn't been in good weather. He has not been in tight games or games where he has to throw a bit more. This is that. Like, they're 6.5-point road underdogs in a dome, which is going to lead to additional rushes for Josh Allen on scrambles. Josh Allen this year is averaging 7.5 rushes for 35.2 yards per game. He's going to get rushes in close towards the goal line. So I think that Josh Allen, it's tight. I think I might have him number 2, though. Like, the top 2 quarterbacks for me on this slate may be in this game. So Josh Allen, I think, is awesome at 78. I think that we're kind of on the same page there. I'd put him above Matt Ryan, though, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to nitpick. And football has so many ranges of outcomes that it's hard to say, here's my firm ranks, because it depends on context. But I think I'd probably end up with Allen number 2.
Right.
And it's really easy for him now because he's just throwing the ball to John Brown. And so it makes it easier to stack. Since the Zay Jones trade, John Brown has 30% of the targets, 47% of the air yards, 22 of 40 deep targets. Nobody else on the team has more than 4. It's like the high leverage looks are going to John Brown, and that helps a lot. And he's only $6,600.
Yeah. I think that John Brown. I'm trying to figure out where I rank him, like, overall on this slate.
It's tough because, I mean, I know he's had a higher floor this year, but he's got a super high ceiling. But I don't know.
My internal debate was, do I rank him first or third?
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's what I was saying about quarterbacks.
Do I rank John Brown as my favorite salary-dependent play on the slate, or do I rank him behind Zeke and Kamara? It's like, that's where John Brown is to me.
Oh, geez. All right.
He's such a good play because again, the reason that he hasn't he's had a ceiling in that Miami game, but the reason he hasn't really had a ceiling outside of that is because they haven't had to throw that much. Like they've been ahead in games, but again, this is different. This is a different context, and so I've probably been underweight on John Brown most of the year. I was overweight on him against Miami. But I think I will be overweight on him again this week. I know he'll be popular, but I don't care. John Brown in the 4 games since Devin Singletary's role change, which I think is kind of the most relevant sample for the Bills, 32% of the targets, 60% of the deep targets, 29% of the red zone targets. That's awesome. So John Brown, really good play. I think that he's one of the best plays in the slate. I would say that Devin Singletary is – I'm having trouble going back and forth to him in Montgomery. I think that what you said about him not being game script dependent is very true. And I think that's a big appeal in Devin Singletary. In the 4 games since his role change, he's averaged 16 carries, 3.5 targets per game. That is 23 adjusted opportunities per game. Again, that's equivalent to David Montgomery. He's had only 2 rushes inside the 5 in that time. Frank Gore is 4, Josh Allen is 2, and I think that's one reason to lower him. But the Bears have also given Tariq Cohen some goal line rushes. I think Cordero Patterson might have been in on one of them. Mitchell Trubisky can run. So it's not as if David Montgomery is going to get 100% of the Bears rushing touchdowns either. So I think right now I'd rank Devin Singletary a little bit higher than Montgomery, but I'm going back and forth on those two.
Yeah, I think if they were priced the same, I would go Singletary about 70-30. But the $700 savings really helps on this slate because that's the difference between a full punt and something else, or getting up from tier 2 to tier 1. But Singletary, I mean, there are some goal line concerns, but he's dominated the targets 20-3 over Frank Gore since Singletary's role changed. The snaps are kind of there. I mean, it's really easy to put him 3rd overall at running back.
I agree. I think that if I have one tournament lineup, it's back and forth for me between him and Montgomery, and Dak and Zeke Zeke and Kamara are the other two. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to mention from this game, or should we get to our favorite stack here?
I think Cole Beasley at $5,800 is a high floor play. He's got 20% of the targets since the Jones trade, and then Dawson Knox is minimum salary at tight end. Just 11% of the targets, 3 downfield looks, but 87% of the snaps last week. He might be the best tight end play on the slate based on his salary.
I agree. I don't know if I'd rank him quite that high, but I think that he's a very good tight end play. $4,500, like you said, snap rate super high last week. I was worried about Tyler Kroft, but Dawson Knox dusted him in snaps last week. He can get some yak, which means that he's not Jason Witten, basically. I think this is the way to say that. He can stiff arm dudes to Middle Earth. We've seen that multiple times. I like that a lot. So I think Knox makes sense. I would also mention, I'm not going to do this if I'm doing a limited number of lineups, but if you are really going hard and you you want kind of like a very cheap wide receiver who has some juice, it's Isaiah McKenzie. He is $4,800. He, in the time since Devin Singletary's role change, he does have 14% of the targets. He has 17% of the red zone looks. And they give him these weird designed carries. And I think that means they're scheming to get him the ball. And I think that's valuable. So I think that Isaiah McKenzie is someone I am willing to use if I'm doing a bunch of lineups at $4,800.
Yeah, he has run 86% of the routes in each of the past 2 games. It was 55 and 65 before that. But, you can do worse than a cheap player who's on the field in what could be a high-scoring game. So, you can't play everyone, so keep that in mind. But if you're playing a low-dollar entry, huge tournament, someone like McKenzie, if he scores even a touchdown, you can get some leverage there.
And the other thing, too, is it seems like, I don't have data to back this up, but I live in Syracuse, New York, so I watch a lot of Bills games. It seems like every time he touches the football, it's in the red zone, and I'm tilting my face off because it's not Devin Singletary, because I've used way too much Devin Singletary this year, specifically the past month. So anecdotally, I think that helps his cause as well. All right, favorite game stack here. You go first.
Being sensitive to price, I would probably, despite what I said about not soaking up all the touchdowns or like mixing and matching, I might go Dak, Zeke, Cobb, John Brown.
Okay, I like that. My favorite will be Gallup. I'm gonna put Gallup above Cobb. But if you go Dak, Zeke, Gallup, and John Brown, I think you could toss Devin Singletary in there too. If you think this game is the highest scoring game in the slate, which I think it very well could be, that's a pretty good lineup. So I'm gonna make that mine. Let's go full stack. Let's go Dak, Zeke, Gallup, Singletary, John Brown, and then figure out the rest from there. I think that's a fun stack. But again, I do want to reiterate, I want to be overweight on Amari Cooper because I think people will be afraid of him due to the matchup with Tre'Davious White. Let's finish up here with the Saints at the Falcons. The Saints are 5.5-point favorites. It opened at Saints -6.5. The line has dropped, or the total has dropped from 50 to open at 49.5, even though 90% of the money is on the over. So that's interesting. I'm guessing it's due to injuries. Terran Armstead will miss this game due to a high ankle sprain. He's an awesome tackle. Andres Pete, their left guard, also missed practice Monday due to a forearm injury. He's missed the past couple of games, so the Saints could be without the entire left side of their line, and that's one of the best offensive lines in football. Marshawn Lattimore, though, did return to a limited practice on Monday, which would be a big lift for the defense on the Saints. For the Falcons, Devontae Freeman actually did return to practice Monday. Didn't expect that, but he did, meaning he can return from his foot injury. Julio Jones did not practice due to a shoulder injury. He suffered that on Sunday. And then Austin Hooper missed practice again and is likely to miss another game this week. Julio returned to that game, so I'm assuming he's going to play, but it is at least worth noting that he did not practice on Monday. Brandon, overall thoughts for you on this game?
Just one thing. They didn't practice yesterday, right? It was like an estimated
I think it was a walkthrough for all teams. So it was estimated what they would have done had they practiced.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, that just not going to be in on Devontae Freeman anyway, necessarily. But actually, I don't know his prices.
62.
So, I mean, this is the highest total on the slate, but this is a divisional matchup and a rematch of a game that just ripped out everyone's hearts a couple weeks ago. That was right after the Falcons changed their defensive play calling. We saw them have 2 really good weeks, and then I won't say get torched by Jameis Winston, but, I mean, Winston's passing net expected points per drop back was good enough to rank the Falcons dead last on the full season. So like there might be enough film out there now for the Saints to have figured this out. So I'm not saying that will be a dud, but it still is a divisional game, and that's some concern there regardless.
And I think the Terran Armstead injury is huge for the Saints. We do have a sample on them without Armstead because he's a tough dude. He gets hurt a lot. They played 6 games without him each of the past 2 years. And in 2018, these numbers are via the Quant Edge's injury tool. In 2018, the Saints averaged 8.62 yards per pass attempt with Armstead. It was 7.37 without him, so it dropped a yard and a half, basically. In 2017, it was 8.8 yards per attempt with him, 7.7 without. And their success rates dropped by like 6 percentage points both times, too. So things got pretty rough, and I don't think that's a fluke. Like, Terran Armstead is one of the best left tackles in football. And I disregarded Andres Pete's injury initially because he's not that great, honestly. He's like the weak link in the offensive line. They have good interior depth. But once you take Armstead out of the equation too, it's really different. And I think that's a big part of the reason why I think this game hits the under. And it's a big part of the reason why I like Bills Cowboys more. So, like, I think that there are a lot of things that point to this game not hitting the total. And when you consider the salaries of each guy in it, I think that's why I rank Bills Cowboys higher. A lot of it is due to the Terran Armstead injury.
Yeah, I think that there are just a lot of paths to this game being disappointing. And then, you look at the prices, like Jared Cook is $6,700. I don't know how often I'm going to pay $6,700 to get a tight end on a 3-game slate. Like, that scares me. Like, there's fear of missing out because Cook just had 99 yards last week. So he's got like some yardage juice, but I mean, I think like for the prices, it's just kind of tougher than Cowboys Bills. So I'm with you there. Like
Yeah.
I have a lot of concerns here. Not so much that I won't touch it or anything because you have to play, you can't do that. But I do have some concerns.
Yeah, Jared Cook, I think actually like he has the highest upside in the slate at tight end. I don't think that's like a hot take. But in the games, they played 3 games since everybody was healthy. In those games, Cook has 18% of the targets, 28% of the deep targets, and 19% of the red zone targets. Now, the deep target number there is flawed because Drew Brees in those games has just a 14% deep rate, which is a very low number. His average depth of target is 6.8, according to fantasyadhd.com. That ranks 29th out of 33 quarterbacks with at least 30 attempts in that time. So I'm going to rank Drew Brees kind of low on the list at quarterback. Like he's not off the map. And I think that he's a path to a big game, but it's not because of the Falcons defense. It's not because of the divisional game. It's because he doesn't have I had no idea what I was saying. It's not because it's because he doesn't have Terron Armstead, and it's because he's not throwing deep, which limits his ability to have a huge game. Whereas I think that Dak and Josh Allen both have the ability to have a huge game. So, and Drew Brees is 85, whereas Dak is 82, Josh Allen 78. That's enough for me to be lower on him, but I still like the piece to tie to him. It's just I just don't like Drew Brees as much.
Yeah, I'm struggling with Brees because we know what Drew Brees can do when he's fully Drew Brees, but it just hasn't really been there. And I mean, I think one of the glaring question marks is just what you do with Michael Thomas at $9,200. It's not impossible to play Thomas, Kamara, and Ezekiel Elliott, but once you throw in a quarterback there, like it's just not a super easy lineup construction from there. You're going to be probably on a lot of the popular value plays. I mean, again, I haven't fully built, but Thomas, I mean, it's just we know what he can do. He's probably locked into like 12 targets, depending on the pass volume here. Like he's going to get 30% of the targets, if not more. And on a short slate with so much variance, that safety is very enticing. But I can't figure out where I'm going to land on Thomas. What about you?
I just built the lineup with Thomas, Kamara, Zeke, Dak. It's ugly. You can do it. It's ugly, but you can do it. Woof.
Do you have to play the Falcons on the other side of it to get it to work?
No, I played Lions at 44. You can play the Falcons, though. I think we saw the value of spending down on defense this past week with Washington. Their defense is terrible, but there's no Terron Armstead. The Falcons are getting some pass rush now. I think the Falcons defense is fine.
Yeah, so even with the Falcons, if you play Dak, Zeke, Kamara, Thomas, you're looking at 56.75 for your flex, your two receivers.
But after you plug in Dawson Knox and Isaiah McKenzie, it's all good, man. You just stack the bills.
That's
it's
true.
All good.
Yeah.
It's all good. No worries.
Absolutely.
We're happy. But I think it is tough. So if you want to use Michael Thomas, you may have to sacrifice. Maybe you don't go Kamara. Maybe you don't go Zeke. Maybe you jump down to Trubisky or Jeff Driscoll, which again is viable because they have rushing juice. So that's fine. That's okay. But you do have to change your lineup construction to get there.
Would you play Thomas and Kamara together?
Totally. Yeah. Okay. If you look at the games since everyone came back, again, where Cook has a really good deep target share, Michael Thomas has 31% of the targets, and Alvin Kamara has 25%. Totally okay. Because, going back to that discussion you were having earlier about not playing touchdown-dependent plays, those are two guys who don't need touchdowns to pay off. Kamara hasn't scored a touchdown since, college, basically. It's been since the Seattle game, the first game with Teddy Bridgewater starting. But he's still averaged a bunch of FanDuel points per game. I know that's a very scientific number. If you look at him since the bye week, so since he and Latavius Murray have been playing alongside each other, Kamara's averaged 9.3 carries and 9.7 targets per game. That's actually 28.7 adjusted opportunities per game, which is more than Zeke in his most relevant sample. And the snap rates for Kamara there, 79%, 63%, 67%. Those are really good numbers. He would have had a pretty much dud day on Sunday had it not been for some late targets in that Carolina game, and I want to acknowledge that. But I still think that he makes a ton of sense. So I'm very okay using both together, yeah.
Any well, I don't want to just keep asking you questions, but I'm looking for differentiation plays. Latavius Murray has some appeal, especially if we play that the Saints get ahead. Now, without Armstead, that's a less justifiable play. But I'm staring down Ted Ginn and Traquan Smith as well. Ted Ginn's $5,200, Traquan Smith's $4,500. You mentioned that Brees isn't throwing it deep a lot, but since week 10, since Kamara came back, Ginn's got a 21.8 yard average target depth. He's up 12-6 in deep targets on Traquan Smith. So if I'm picking between the two, and I will be doing that, I'm looking at Ted Ginn.
I agree. For those same reasons. He has double the targets Traquan. Traquan has, I think, 6 total targets in that time. I might be wrong there, but I think it's 6. And like, if I'm going to pay for Traquan.
Oh, yeah, it's 12-6 targets, not deep targets.
Like, I think that Traquan grades out below. Where is Traquan?
He's minimum salary.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's different. I assumed he'd be by Ginn at 52. But Anthony Miller's 53. I'd rather have Anthony Miller. I'd rather have Ted Ginn. Between Traquan and Isaiah McKenzie, I have some hesitation. Like, I actually might go Isaiah McKenzie, which is probably stupid, but it's true. So I think that Ted Ginn. I think that among the guys who are not Thomas and Kamara, I would still rank Cook highest, even though he's expensive, because he's the only, like, legitimate tight end on the slate.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it makes sense, but it also goes against everything I want to do.
Yeah.
So, and just to finish up on Traquan Smith, I mentioned McKenzie was at like 86% of the routes the past 2 weeks. Smith's past 3 games, 84, 69, and 73%. So, not too far off the mark. He's still there. He's just not getting a lot of targets.
Yeah, and that matters to me. Austin Carr's on injured reserve, which is depressing. Totally could have been an Austin Carr game when he runs 78 routes and maybe gets a target, maybe gets a half target. But oh well, Austin Carr, go Cats. Before we move on,
for sake of percentages, say you're building 100 lineups, what are you looking at for Jared Cook in terms of your exposure? Because I think we might be different here.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I've not thought that far out because. Right. I think because I'm going to be living in the 6,000 range at receiver, it'll be like high-ish.
Okay.
We got a question before we move on to the Falcons in the chat on YouTube from Raptor King. They want to know who are you prioritizing, Latavius Murray or Kamara? Like, I think Latavius Murray is an option, and I agree with you where if you assume the Saints roll, which they could, I think Latavius Murray would be good. But I will have a lot more Kamara than I have Latavius Murray.
Yeah, Kamara's got 57 opportunities, non-adjusted, in 3 games since returning. Murray's at 27, and that includes a 29-5 discrepancy in terms of targets, which are worth about twice as much on average as a carry for a running back. So I know it's a huge discrepancy in price, but the workloads still really, really favor Kamara.
I would say Latavius Murray is in the Bo Scarborough zone. Although his quarterback is in Jeff Driscoll, which is good. His quarterback is not a guy who was moved to wide receiver in August. That's valuable, but I think he's in the same zone where I'd only use him in lineups where I assume that the Saints will roll. Let's move now to the Falcons side of this game. If we look at Matt Ryan, he was really bad last week against Tampa Bay. In 2 games without Hooper and Devontae, he's at 0.03 passing net expected points per dropback, but he was actually really good in the first game of that sample. He's just really bad against the Falcons. I would lower Matt Ryan
against
if Marshawn. Oh, sorry, yeah, against Saints. I would lower him if Marshawn Lattimore plays, which I think as of right now he probably will. But I think that Matt Ryan is still an option. Who do you prefer a quarterback between these two guys, in Brees and Ryan?
Probably still Ryan, just for the salary.
Yeah,
it just makes it a little bit easier. I mean, straight up, I would go with Brees, but like you kind of that, what is it, $800 difference? Yeah, that goes a long way on a short slate. So
I agree. His ADOT is also almost 3 yards higher in the 2 games without Hooper and Devontae than Drew Brees is since they're by. So I think that Matt Ryan has a higher ceiling straight up.
It's also easier to stack Ryan for me because Drew Brees will throw the ball to literally anybody. He will throw the ball if they put in the towel boy, in the red zone. He'll throw.
There was that video of him throwing to his sons on the couch like last year. He'll throw it to his kids who are like 4 and 5 years old. Yeah,
he'll throw it to Taysom Hill. Like it's a little bit problematic.
Like how we just equated Taysom Hill to Drew Brees' kids.
I mean,
it's not wrong.
I don't know.
Looking at the targets in the 2 games without Hooper, I think that Devontae may potentially come back with Hooper. I don't think will. In those games, Calvin Ridley has 27% of the targets. He has 56% of the deep targets and 30% of the red zone targets. Like, that's stupid usage. Part of that's because Julio missed part of that game against Tampa Bay, but he was awesome in the game that Julio played the full game too. So Calvin Ridley at 65. The one path to bad is Marshawn Lattimore plays, and they stick Marshawn Lattimore on Ridley, which they've done in the past, and then they bracket Julio. They've done that before, but Lattimore is not at full health. So, like, that doesn't scare me off enough to say I don't like Calvin Ridley. I like Calvin Ridley a lot. What are your thoughts on Calvin Ridley in the context of we like this range a lot?
Yeah, I love him, but honestly, I mean, we got John Brown at 66. We can put Gallup there. So Gallup, John Brown, Ridley, Marvin Jones, and then Randall Cobb. He's not going to be above John Brown for me.
Agreed.
He's not going to be above Marv, I don't think. Could be close. I don't know.
He'll be above Marv for me. Because, again, his quarterback was not moved to wide receiver by the Bengals in August.
Yeah.
Hate to keep coming back to that, but it's a thing.
That was going to be my rebuttal to myself there. But that's tough. At best, he'd be second, but I might put him behind both Cowboys guys because I like that game more.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I like Ridley, but I'm not viewing him as someone who's on par with John Brown.
I think John Brown's in a tier of his own in this range. Like, if I'm only getting one, it's going to be John Brown.
He also fills the full FanDuel, like, the column his shoulder pads got real far, and there's a lot of negative space for everyone else.
Why is he the only one wearing shoulder pads? I guess Cole Beasley is.
To draw our attention to them.
Weird. Those are weird. That is strange. It's Julio's head, like Justin's head. Everyone else is like weirdly zoomed out.
Kenny Galladay's like in the
Kenny Galladay is like standing off on the edge of the earth. I think that Ridley's number 2 for me behind John Brown. Where does Julio rank among the expensive guys? Again, assuming he's healthy, because again, I think we can assume that. So, what do you think?
So among the expensive guys, probably behind Cooper. I mean, behind
what
Thomas.
What about Robinson?
Probably ahead of Robinson.
His salary is such a turnoff. Allen Robinson's is. Like, I'm going to use him, but it's a major turnoff.
If Robinson were 7,100 with Galladay, I would be really into bumping up from Ridley to Robinson if I could do that.
Yeah.
But it's just
not. I would also. I think I would rank Cooper higher. I know Tre'Davious White is tough, but like, he's really good, man. So I think that I would be struggling there too. I like Julio, but I really like Amari Cooper. As far as cheaper guys in this game, Jaden Graham played 66% of the snaps in week 12. He did catch a long ball. He ran 46 routes on 61 dropbacks, which is 75%. And according to Pro Football Focus, 30 of his routes run came from the slot and 5 were out wide. I think that if we're looking for a cheap tight end, Jaden Graham is $4,900. I don't hate that. I don't hate it. What do you think?
I don't hate it, but at a certain point, you can't play all of the tight ends.
Yeah, but like, again, if we're going to you asked me 100 lineups.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have Jared Cook in 100.
Right. But realistically, if you're playing 20 lineups, are you trying to get in Jaden Graham?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get, so then are you going to have exposure to Jared Cook, any Jason Witten?
I'd really rather not.
Okay, so no Witten. Jaden Graham's
So Jaden Graham,
third in salary. That's nuts.
Jaden Graham on Sunday had a 53-yard catch.
Yeah.
The number of times that Jason Witten has had 53 receiving yards in a game this year is 1, 2, 3. So
Any Hawkinson?
Probably not. Like Logan Thomas hasn't gotten a ton of work, but he's gotten more work towards the goal line than Hawkinson has recently. So, like, I think for me, Dawson Knox, Jaden Graham, and Jared Cook may be my 3 favorite tight ends, which is so sad to say, but they might be those 3 tight ends.
Yeah, I still like Witten.
Like, he's fine. He can have a 2-touchdown game. So I would like to avoid him, but I'm probably going to wind up with some exposure. I just really don't want to. I mean, I guess the defense of Jason Witten is that it's very possible no tight end gets more than 50 receiving yards. So he's defensible. I will use him. I would just like to avoid it.
So Jason Witten is $5,500. Jaden Graham's $49. Graham, despite any spikes in playing time, has 2 targets in each of the past 2 games. It's really hard to embrace a full-on 0. I know that Jason Witten does not have a floor that is super high necessarily, but relative to everyone else, I mean, 4, 7, 5, 9, 4, 7 targets like in recent games. It's really, I'm just gonna be kicking myself a lot if I'm like, I went heavy on Jaden Graham and didn't find $600 to get up to Jason Witten, who at least got me like 40 yards.
Jason Witten has 0 games this year with more than 10.5 FanDuel points. Blake Jarwin has 2.
Yeah, I'm not looking for ceiling. I'm looking for not getting erased at tight end sometimes.
That's fair. Fair enough. I just really don't want to use. He's like, oh gosh, that's bad. Like JP Holtz, the guy who ran a 4.85 40 for the Bears. I might be more okay with him than I am Witten, just totally punting at 4,000. So I don't know. It's tight. Other interesting play to mention here are the other cheap guys. Brian Hill, in the 2 games without Devontae Freeman, he has 12 carries and 3.5 targets per game. It's not a great workload, but he's $5,500. Quadri Olson took some work away from Brian Hill this week, and I think that's noteworthy. So if I don't end up with Brian Hill in my player pool, I'm not going to cry about it, and I don't care. But like, he's not totally off the map. I think that I'd rather just get up to David Montgomery. But would you use any Brian Hill if you, like, let's say you make an assumption lineup where you assume the Falcons role? Would you use Brian Hill there?
Possibly. The ceiling's not going to be super high.
Yeah.
So if you're playing like a huge tournament, I would advise against it, even if you are playing that angle.
Right.
I would be more inclined. Is there anything wrong with Russell Gage?
No, Russell Gage is fine. If you look
54.
at the 2 games without Austin Hooper, Gage has 17% of the targets, 20% of the red zone targets. He doesn't get work downfield. He's kind of like
Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they're right next to each other.
Yeah, he's Cole Beasley.
Danny Amendola.
I'd rather have Gage than Amendola. I get no. Oh god, this is the slate where Danny Amendola makes me hate him again. Oh man,
you got Cole Beasley, Russell Gage, Danny Amendola, all next to each other on FanDuel.
Like, they're all the same player, so what does it matter? Like, just go Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller has a downfield target this year. I can't guarantee the other guys do. Like, in my data, they do, but like, this could be like the deep state working against us, trying to get me to think that Cole Beasley once ran a route 5 yards downfield. He didn't.
Hey man, you're the one who watches all the Bills games, so
that's true. Fair enough. I'd rather just go down to Anthony Miller. Like, I can't use him in every lineup, so I can't just say I'm disregarding these guys. I think if I had to pick one, it would be Beasley, because we forgot to mention this. Revenge game, buddy, against the Cowboys. That matters.
Yes.
So I think I would rank Beasley highest, but like, they're all the same player. They're like, if you took Cole Beasley off the field and put Russell Gage in his uniform, would anyone notice? Yes, because there are certain differences between the two guys. But would anyone actually notice outside of that?
I mean, based on the FanDuel picture, Russell Gage is a lot more narrow.
Yeah,
than
because
Beasley.
Cole Beasley's tough. Football guys wear shoulder pads, and Cole Beasley wears shoulder pads. I think I'd rank Beasley highest, but like they're all bad. I just go Anthony Miller.
I like Ted Ginn still.
Yeah,
Just if I'm gambling.
Yeah, I'd rather go Ted Ginn than those guys too. I think that's fair. Any final notes you have from this game?
I think we covered everything.
Okay.
That I have.
Favorite game stack in this game?
You go first this time.
I'm going to go Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Alvin Kamara. And that's it.
That's what I was thinking.
Thinking about Michael Thomas, but I decided not to.
I mean, yeah, I have no issues with Thomas, especially in tournaments and stacks. So, like, I'll get there, but it's just hard to prioritize him and spend up for, Zeke Elliott. So, again, I'm still into the idea of paying up for Cooper and Thomas and building lineups with Singletary and Montgomery as my main running backs. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. So,
yeah, that's fine. And I'm okay with that. And again, I think I mentioned before, it's okay to put a wide receiver in your flex this week, more so than it is any other time, basically. It's a short slate. They're good receivers. There aren't a ton of good running backs, so I think that makes sense. So we talked through the entire slate now, Brandon. Has anything changed for you while talking through it? Because, like, my mind changes as we're talking all the time. Like, that happens literally every week. Did anything change for you throughout today that you want to mention relative to where we were at the beginning?
Not a whole lot. Usually it does change. Usually I open up my eyes. Maybe I'm higher on Jaden Graham.
Better be.
I wish he were still minimum salary.
Do you want to make a bet on Jaden Graham versus Jason Witten?
And yardage?
No, we'll go FanDuel points. Because Jason Witten, part of his profile is that he does get work near the goal line. I don't want to deprive him of that.
Sure.
Okay. This is a really sad bet.
All of our bets are always sad.
No, Todd Gurley versus Wayne Gallman was good when they both scored like 20 points. That was great. That was a good one. This one is not good. You've got Jason Witten. I've got Jaden Graham. Let's do it. I think the thing that really stood out to me in talking through this slate is how good the mid-range is at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And I think that reiterates to me that I want to get Zeke and Kamara. I have reasons for concern for both. I don't like Zeke's target share. I don't like that Kamara is playing without Terron Armstead and Andres Pete. But I still want to get those two guys. And those mid-range wide receivers really help me. Anthony Miller helps me get there. So tight end is bad. It's the only thing that stood out to me. Any final thoughts before we close up shop for today?
Take a stand for the Thanksgiving slate. Maybe you like Bears Lions. Nobody else is going to probably. If you hit the right stack, it can pay off. But if you're playing a smaller tournament, you're playing against like your family, you don't have to get super crazy. Just because it's a 3 games.
Yeah, just you can shoot for floor in a small field. Like if you're playing against your family, which is fun, I would totally do that. Just shoot for floor. Play the right plays.
Cole Beasley then.
Oh God. No.
Cole Beasley, Jason Witten. All the fun floor plays.
Yuck. When Danny Amendola scores his second touchdown, I am going to throw my TV out a window. It's gonna happen.
You said in Slack like 2 months ago that Randall Cobb's gone for 2 tutties on Thanksgiving, and I'm on board with it.
Did I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm going to use Randall Cobb, so I'm actually okay with that now.
I think you were tilting, and then his role got a lot better all of a sudden. So
yeah, that's probably what it was.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I feel like I remember that.
If it's him and not Amendola, I'll be very happy. Like that's all I want. I just don't want this to be a Danny Amendola slate.
We know your feelings about Danny Amendola.
Let's not let that happen. Just please do not let that happen. That is all the time that we have for today. But if you want more football talk, we're back with you tomorrow to break down the Week 13 main slate. That'll be up on YouTube live at 10 a.m. on the FanDuel YouTube page. It'll be up in the Number Fire Daily Fantasy podcast feed shortly after that. So make sure you subscribe to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts as well. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, who is a busy dude today. He is with us for this. He's with us for our waiver wire Q&A at 2 o'clock. He's with us for covering the spread this afternoon. Cal, thank you. I know you're busy. I appreciate it. We'll let you get off here in just 1 second. And thank you to everyone who tuned in as well for today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck with the Thanksgiving slate. Enjoy the green bean casserole. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Number Fire.